Alright, so far we have created our Node.js server and our routes. Let's go ahead and create our models files, shall we? So first we are going to create a models folder, and we will create a new file in it called index.js. And let's first make the connection to MongoDB. So first require Mongo module. Then of course we are going to need nconf, and let's create a global variable for this file, which is dbo. This will hold the MongoDB connection. I'll explain that in a moment. So let's connect to Mongo variable. So mongo dot connect and dot get, which is MongoDB URL. So we're good, and we are going to use one more. Use new parser true. Use unified. Unified topology true. Very well. Now let's go to callback or tb, and if there is no error, if there is error, so we'll simply print the error and exit the code base. Else we'll simply say tbo equal to tb.db, and we are going to use our database name, which is cfg course. Here we have selected our database, so we can perform the operations in the collections present in that database. And we're simply going to say collected to MongoDB. Cool. Let's go ahead and create various functions that we require to actually deal with the REST API. First and foremost, we are going to create a function to get all users. Alright, and of course we will have a we don't need any parameters here. Since we are going to use a sync await, and MongoDB module does not provide promises, I believe, as of this now, so I'm going to wrap it into promise, and we'll simply run our query, which is dot collection. Okay, let me just do it a line way so that you understand. tbo dot collection. Here the collection is users, right? Dot find all. Dot limit. Let's limit it to 20. Dot to array. Subway. Error result. There you go. If error, we are simply gonna print the trace here and reject the promise with error. Otherwise, we are going to resolve the promise with the result. There you go. This is our first function. Next function would be to get the users by ID. So we are going to use the same code base, get user by ID, and here we're going to post ID query dot ID, which will be nothing but query here. So we pass the ID of the user, and the database will basically find it. We don't need limit here. There you go. Cool. Next function would be to actually create users. So we are going to create a function called create user, and we will take the JSON data as an input. Here again we are wrapping into promise first. Cool. Now let's run. So dbo.collection, which is users dot insert one user data. error result. Now if error, again print on the console with trace and reject the promise, else resolve with result. Cool. We will do the all validation and sanitization of this data into the route, and we are going to do that in a moment. Let's run another function called update user. Function update user. Here we are gonna take the JSON data of the user which actually user want to update. Let me just copy. Okay, let's not copy. Let's write the code here. Return new promise. Resolve. Sorry. Reject. Cool. Just gonna call. So we are going to tbout.collection. Select the collection first, which is users, and we're going to run the command called update1. Now to update it, we need to first find the user. So we are going to use ID that is provided into the as our parameter .id. Then we are gonna use set command to update the user data. There you go. Now let's wrap our callback here. Oops. So if error, again trace the error and reject the promise. Otherwise, simply resolve the promise with result. You can put a blank data here as well, because we are not going to use the result of the updation and everything. Last, delete the user. User need to provide the ID, of course. Going to use return new promise. Cool. Now we are going to use delete command, of course. So let me just show you tbout.collection users dot delete one, and we're going to find the user query dot id. There you go. Simply go error result and save. All right. If error, do the same. Sol dot trace reject with error, else resolve the promise, which is you can pass the data. I generally like to pass the data whatever we have to the routes and figure out which data we actually want to use in the routes. So let me just export it. Export get all users as get all users, get user. Okay, what's the function name? I forgot. Okay, get it should be. All right. Get user by ID, update user, delete user. Yeah, delete user, I believe. Okay, create user. Cool. So we've created our model. We have created our route. So let's use our models into the route, shall we? Alright, so first thing first, we need to use joy module as well. So we are going to use joy module to validate the incoming request. So first import the joy module, which is const joy equal to happy joy. Then import our models, which is string at models file. Cool. So first thing first, to get all users, and since we are using async await, we are going to grab this function as async. Let's do this. Cool. First try and catch. Always use it with async await. It's very good actually. Let user data wait models get all users. Alright, now it simply response.json. You say you can create new fields. Let's say error false, data is user data. You also put a message in there if you want. Here we're gonna return response.json with error true. The error just blank, or you can just pass no data in there because there is an error occurred. Next is get user by ID. Same deal. First thing first, make this function async. Try catch E. Alright, so in the try, since we are using or we are passing the ID here, we need to validate the ID first. So let me explain how to validate it using Choi. One way is you can simply use JavaScript native functions to validate whether the ID exists or not, whether it's number or string or whatever you want to. But I like to use Choi. It's very good and provides very rich set of validation. So let me just show you. So let's say if you want to validate ID here, dot keys, and you create a schema. That schema is ID. It should be number, and it is required. Cool. All right. Now let's validate it. Simply just use result and schema dot validate your incoming request, which is nothing but ID request dot params dot ID, which should be nothing but this. So if result comes as true, that means everything is good. But if there is an error, you can simply check before actually doing the call. If there is error, just throw the error. If not, you can use or do whatever you want to. In our case, we are going to use a call MongoDB models function. Here we're gonna call result dot value, which is the sanitized and checked value. And when the results come in, you can just simply copy from here and paste it here. Alright, I think it's the same. Cool. And let me just copy it, error one as well. Fine. So let me explain again. First, we are creating Choi schema here, where we are telling that the incoming field is ID, and we want it to be number, and it must be there. Then we are checking it with the schema.validate function, and we are passing the actual ID with the value that is coming from the API. And if there is an error, we are just simply throwing an error instead of going here. If there is no error, that means data is proper. We can call our model function and get the data. Let's do that into creating new users. This is very important. Let me just write the function first. Okay. So let's create our schema. So let's say our schema is like this. Choi, first Choi dot object dot keys. Here we are going to specify what all the input coming up. First name, that is our input. If you remember from the Mokaru screenshot or Mokaru data generation that we used, we have used around 5 fields, which is first name, last name, email, gender, and IP address. So let me validate name first. String dot minimum should be 3. I'm using maximum could be 45, and it is a required field. Last name joy of string, minimum should be 3, max should be 45, and it is a required field. Then goes email, and surprisingly joy also has email validation inbuilt. Should be string dot email, and it is a required field. Next is gender. Here we want gender either male or female. You can simply put that check as well, which is valid, male or female. Alright, cool. Next is IP address, which is IP underscore address. Simply use joy.string.ip. Sorry. And it is also a required field. So this is our schema. We are using first name, last name, email, gender. We have asked the validation. We have specified what those fields should be. If there is any failure in it, we won't accept the incoming request. So let's do the check. Here is schema.validate. You can simply pass request or body here. If result.error, you can simply throw result.error. Otherwise, there you go. We can do basic things. So since we are also using ID, so let's generate ID here. So let's generate ID here, which would be our simply a navigator. Since MongoDB also generates underscore ID field, but I like to use my own. So instead of random, let me just create a random ID, random with 3 digit ID plus 2, and let's call our function. So models dot create user, pass the result dot value. There you go, and simply return error false. There is no result, I believe, so you can just simply say yes. Otherwise, you can true, and also you can set various headers. By default, response or just JSON set to headers as 200. In case of error, you can also set multiple headers if you want to. Let's create our put function, that is to update the data. So let me just do that here. Now to also update, we are checking all the fields that are incoming. So it would be pretty similar to how we have done our creation. So let me just copy that whole thing here, because we are going to use the same code, and except calling the function, except calling a different function. I mean, let me just copy here. There you go. All right. So these are the incoming fields. Of course, we won't be generating ID because ID will come into the request as well. And here we can just simply say ID as joy.number required. And we can just, alright, now here instead of that we'll use update user function, and if there's any error, everything goes here. Same goes for our delete. So in delete we are also expecting ID. Could be pretty similar to get all users function. So let me copy that code. That should be here. Oh, sorry, this code actually, because we are expecting an ID. All right. If you're expecting an ID as number, after validation, we're simply calling, we're going to call models dot delete user and simply just make it back. So once that happens, the data will be deleted. Alright, so I hope till now you got how we are actually making sure how to basically build a REST API, how we are connecting to MongoDB, how we are creating different functions, how we are wrapping the callback function into promise so that we can use it here as an async and await. And this is pretty much it. So in the next video we are going to test their application out and see how it works so that you get an idea about the working of such an application.